Welcome back to the On Track video cast. Today we are talking about hormones, ladies, which is always everybody's favorite topic because I think we all have hormone dysfunction these days. And with me to do that is Vivica Menegaz. I think she was just telling me how to say it properly. I think I probably did not. Menegaz. She's Italian. I don't speak Italian. I think that's close. Okay. She is Thank you. She is a certified whole food nutritionist, published author, and one of the leading voices advocating for a food-based approach to healing. Vivica was the first one to use the now popular expression Keto Paleo to describe her lifestyle and way of eating, which is also my lifestyle and way of eating. She is the creator of the Healing Foods Method on an online program. You can find her on her popular blog, The Nourished Caveman. Welcome, Vivica.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
It is. It's always good to find the other women that are leading the way for other women when it comes to education on our hormones and how to naturally heal them through food, through supplements, whatever, sometimes through medication, but at least educating women on what their choices are. So I'm excited to have you here. I would love for you to start with just your own story because you were actually like on your way down a different road and it of course brought you this way. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course, like I think most practitioners, like, or at least holistic practitioners should be motivated by their own health issues and in like finding the solution to their own health issues and like bringing that experience into their practice of resolving things. I know that for me personally, it's really important, and I usually don't do things on, or then I don't recommend things for my patients that I haven't tried myself. I think that that's a big thing. And I wish I could say that for doctors, but that's another story.
Yes, it is. Yes. And you're right. No, I don't think so. But I'm with you on that. I'm the same way. I think everything I recommend, I've usually tried at some point in my own life.
Right. And I have not maybe tried all the supplements I recommend for my patients because I don't have maybe all the specific conditions, but I did try all the diets and I tried them on myself first. And at least like I tried the companies of the supplements and, so what really brought me to be an expert on hormones, and it was my own story of having a very stubborn and, and non-cooperative hormones that started out with fibroids in my like early 40s. And I think that the fibroids definitely came from pre-existing problems of like estrogen dominance that was already there, insulin resistance combined with estrogen dominance, a congested liver, like those are usually like, there is a kind of like a track that we go on, and the track is really driven by our diet and lifestyle, especially in America and United States, but I think Canada it's pretty similar.
Oh yeah.
These days it's not, they're Dr. Weston Price used to call them the foods of commerce, and I would now also call them the modern lifestyle, sedentary at the computer all day, plus crazy endocrine disruptors in the environment, plus, not enough sleep, too much stress, and eating bad foods, processed foods, all of it compounded, and the environmental toxins, just knocked out the microphone, sorry. Everything together really compounding and just causing this sort of domino effects. There's like almost a hormonal domino effect that happens, especially in women. And because we have the sex hormones that are so much more complicated than men and add a whole other universe to like our sexual and hormonal complexity, from the sex hormones. So when you start combining, hormones like insulin with hormones like estrogen, and then the thyroid hormones, of course, are there, and hormones like cortisol, it becomes an explosive cocktail. And, a lot of people will experience this kind of hormonal dysregulation like I had with that high stress, bad food combination. So it started out for me at perimenopause. When I had a pretty early perimenopause, starting like beginning of my 40s. I'm now 49, so I am like at the kind of final edges of perimenopause where like my periods have become really kind of sporadic, maybe every 3 months. I still get periods, but they're kind of here and there. I'm really happy about that.
Which most women are not happy to be going into menopause.
Right,
So
because it's symptomatic. And like here, you know, I'm just here to prove you that menopause can be just so good.
yeah, that's amazing. I would never have guessed you were 49. I was like thinking you were maybe in your 30s, like mid 30s. So you're looking good. You're doing something right.
Thank you. Thank you. I try, yes. And, you know, like beauty from the inside out really does work, you guys. So if you have motivation, you know, to have a healthier lifestyle is, you know, it's not just feeling good, but it's looking good as well. We're women. We want to look good. There is nothing wrong with that. You know,
No.
I don't think there is a single woman out there that says, I want to look like hell. No.
I just so want to gain weight right in my midsection, so I have big rolls.
Yeah,
No, nobody's. I wish we could say that.
Saggy skin. We all want to look good, and we want to feel good, and we want to preserve youth. And like graceful aging, I think is really, really important for everybody. And like just look at like the health of older people, and like what scares me the most is like the brain health and brain power, and how like all those horrible degenerative diseases like Alzheimer and dementia. I don't want to end up like that. So that's why, you know, I had to kind of take over and take charge of my own health. And that's what I teach my patients and my followers, my listeners, is that it's so important to take responsibility for your own health. So when that happened, and I was actually already studying nutrition, I was working for a practice as a patient advocate, and I was working for a chiropractor, Dr. Chiropractic, in her nutrition practice. And these things started happening, you know, like I got diagnosed with fibroids and they were big, like orange size fibroids, you know, like not little tiny ones, and horrible hemorrhages and really painful. And I am the kind of person that I just believe in my personal responsibility. I also have a small phobia of doctors. I don't know, I guess, you know, having gone to school in Italy, I studied about the Middle Ages and where like modern, you know, allopathic medicine comes from, and the plague and the plague doctors and the Inquisition and those kind of things. So anyways, I don't like doctors. And so I decided that if not something that cannot be resolved with nutrition, like unless it's, you know, a broken bone or a really bad infection, I will resolve it myself. And so I just dug into like studying and experimenting, and luckily finding, like, I found an amazing mentor. Like my first mentor was Dr. Penner, who I worked for, a woman, a chiropractor. She's amazing. And she taught me a lot. And then I found another mentor who's Dr. Rhonda Nelson. And she is kind of like the one who carries the flag of restorative endocrinology in, you know, teaching practitioners. And she used to be in practice. I don't think she really practices anymore. Now she's almost a full-time teacher. And like, I love her work. And I am so grateful to have been able to closely collaborate with her and take lots of her seminars and her masterclass on the thyroid, and which is never finished, by the way, because she keeps adding modules. But, you know, she is a thyroid expert as well as like all the other hormones. And so just absorbing, soaking up that knowledge, and then putting it in practice and putting it together with my passion for food and diet and lifestyle, I was able to create a truly like kind of a holistic way of working with people. Because what I feel that happened, like in my experience, I always found practitioners that were doing one thing or the other. a lot of people come to me and they think I just work with the diet, but I don't. I work with the diet, but I also work with supplementation, and I read, blood work, I read saliva tests. Like I'm kind of like that in between a functional medicine doctor and a nutritionist. And luckily I'm not a doctor. I don't want to be a doctor because I don't have that fixed mindset that a doctor can have due to like their education and the way they're kind of brainwashed, in school, and missing so many vital parts of the health picture of women.
And so you obviously went down the ancestral pathway that I think has led us all here, basically talking with one another. It did affect us. It is one of the better diets for sure, to heal the body hormonally. So what did you find there? Like did you go straight into paleo? Were you keto? What was happening?
So it all started like kind of Western price. And, when I studied nutrition, I studied the founding fathers of nutrition. So it was Dr. Price, Dr. Page, Dr. Harrower, Dr. Royal Lee, who is the founder of Standard Process, whose supplements I use in my practice. And all those doctors kind of like convened together and masterminded together and created this incredible pool of knowledge, like around the 40s, the 50s, just as like big agriculture and like, especially after Second World War, as like the food industry really boomed. These doctors were really trying to establish a foundation for nutrition practice and healing the body through nutrition. So that was like my training, and that's where I came from, really big on Western price.
Me too.
And then I started, of course, knowing about paleo and finding the paleo diet and incorporating that in. That's how the Nourished Caveman was born, by the way, because nobody really is like, what is that name? It's so not appropriate to what you're doing. But it kind of is, because like it is an ancestral diet, but it's also a nutrient dense diet. And so there was like a few years ago, about 5-6 years ago, there was a moment where like the Western Price Foundation and the paleo people were like really butting heads on stupid things. And I wanted to show everybody that that was not necessary, and that combining the two worldviews would make for a much better product. And so I created the Nourished Caveman, and I was using kind of mixing and blending things, like not using the grain part of Western Price and not using the dairy, but using the nourishing foods, the organ meats. I'm really big on organ meats, and that's why nobody follows my blog. because
they don't want to be told to eat liver.
Because liver is not glamorous as cupcakes. If I was like the nourished cupcake, everybody would follow my blog.
Not me.
Thank you. Yeah, we're like the hardcore little percentage of people that are like liver lovers and organ meat lovers. In fact, liver is going to be my lunch after this interview today, as I'm doing carnivore keto now. But anyways, that's another.
Oh, we're going to talk about that. Yeah.
So that was the natural evolution. And then as I was like about 2 years paleo and not doing so great, actually, I thought I was like, I'm so healthy. I detox, I cure my gallbladder. I'm doing great. And I kept gaining weight and not doing so good, and high inflammation in my body. And one day I tested my blood sugars and it was like 140 fasting. And I was like, yee, like not cool. What's going on? And so, I was super insulin resistant, pre-diabetic. And I found the ketogenic diet right at that time. I actually tested my blood sugar because I was researching ketogenic diet and the ways to apply to the patients of the practice. And the first patient of the practice was me. So I had to guinea pig myself, and I put myself on a very kind of strict beginning ketogenic diet. There are still the posts on my blog transitioning from paleo to keto, and the kind of keto that I did back then was so funny and interesting. But still, like, I still kind of eat that way, and even though I've evolved a lot. And that was like kind of like love at first bite, we call it. And I just dug into ketogenic. And 5 years ago, not many people even spoke about ketogenic.
No.
It was like Jimmy Moore, still low carb, Maria Emmerich. She's awesome. She was one of my first inspirations. And she was full on keto already. And her book was the first keto book I got, Keto Adapted. And I was like, excuse me, wow, like this is amazing. And I learned a lot from her. And then I just like, kind of carved my own way into the keto world. And I never went back, and I've tried a lot of different variations. So the evolution has been from being super strict keto and doing like high intensity workouts for like a year. And then like, as I was healing my fibroids and like thyroid hypothyroidism came up, Hashimoto's came up. So that came down, and then adrenals crashing and super high stress, went to a divorce, moving out of my house and leaving, everything I had behind, and the kind of incredible amounts of stress that I never thought, like I thought I was stressed before. Well, guess what? It took it like to the next level. And so I had to change my eating again and bringing back more carbs because I was kind of floating around homeless for a while. And I wasn't even able to cook for myself. And so just navigating that lifestyle and seeing how like reintroducing carbs at a certain point helped me lose more weight and actually really support that stress that I was going through and helping my endocrine system. And like by that time, my fibroids were almost gone already. Then they came back with the stress, and then I had to make them go away again. And, so there was a whole evolution going on. And that has kind of led me to here where like until recently I was doing some carb ups. And it's funny because I saw a post yesterday on Instagram. I've been looking into this carnivore thing quite a bit recently and just experimenting and seeing the benefits. And I saw a post of this woman that went from being a super skinny, noodle thin practice yoga, and then like now she's a bodybuilder, like weightlifter, and she's like really strong and beautiful and is a carnivore. And I was like, wow, I feel like that's kind of me in a strange way. Because I come from yoga, and last couple of years I got really, really skinny. And I was like, oh yeah, I feel great skinny. But like now I feel like my body is evolving and I'm about to hit 50. And it's like, where do I want to be? Do I want to be like in the skinny noodle, weak kind of, shapeless girl, like I'm naturally curvy, so it's hard for me to like, I have to be really thin for my hips not to be curvy and like my legs not to be curvy. And so I got there and I was like, oh, I like this, I look like a model. But then I realized that wasn't healthy. And even if I can get there doing keto, and if I do keto and my adrenals are good and I do intermittent fasting, I'll stay skinny. But that is not a healthy place. And so now I am going, like, I'm just a couple of weeks into the carnivore thing, and only 2 days. Today's day 2 of just meat and water. So like last week I did 80-20, so 80% carnivore, 20% keto, where I ate my bitter greens and I had my morning fat tea. And this week is just like I'm doing it and seeing the difference. And like what I feel that is really happening to me is like it's so grounding. And I'm naturally kind of like a space cadet. I have so many things hitting me all the time that my head is all up in the clouds and I'm busy and distracted and forget stuff. And the meat has been like really grounding and stabilizing my energy. And I'm also an O blood type. I'm O negative blood type. So I know that I'm naturally more carnivore than maybe other people, but I think that all of us can benefit from some grounding these days.
Yes. Now, but looking back, because you had that first year of keto, but then had high stress, Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, and weren't doing very well. And I definitely, do you find that in your practice? I definitely do, where when women don't have an optimized thyroid or they do not have an optimized adrenal system, that keto, going super low carb or even carnivore, seems to really backfire. Like maybe they'll do well at first, or maybe they can't even get into ketosis, or they do okay at first and then it just like weight loss stalls, like you said, and then you introduce some more carbs and maybe do the kind of in-between paleo keto world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it revs up their metabolism again and helps to get the weight going. Do you find that in your own practice with women in the keto world?
I think, yes, it's definitely, there is a progression. And the progression is like, depending where they're at, like there's needs to be a progression, but the progression is also in the healing of your body systems. So, as you heal your gut, you might need to go super low carb for a minute. And as you heal your metabolism, you need super low carb. And then you have your endocrine system and your conversion. And I gave this talk on the low carb cruise about balancing thyroid and metabolism and how we do it. And this was before I even started this whole experiment with the carnivore. But I've always been protein heavier in the way I design macros for my patients. And I use protein to transition from high carb to low carb to keto. So for me, it's hard to give kind of a one fix all ticket and say this is going to be good for everybody, because it really, things that are really coming at me these days with this experiment is that microbiome is very important. So depending on your microbiota, that's individual, so individual. And so it makes you really more individual, even as a human and as a case, clinical case, because depending on what bacteria profile you have, you might need fiber from plant, or you might not need fiber from plant, or you might need to avoid fiber from plants. And you got some people will have normal bowel movements on fiber, and some will on no fiber. It's really interesting.
Very interesting. I always ask my patients that. I'm always like, okay, if you take psyllium or you take some sort of high fiber, do you get constipated or you get, in cramping, or does it make you go to the bathroom? Because man, you can go either way.
Right.
And each person is so individualized. I think that's such a good point to get across to everybody, is just because your best friend is doing this amazing job on keto and you're trying and you're not getting the results that she is, then take that as a sign. Switch it up, do something else, right?
Absolutely. Or find the right way of doing keto for you, because
yes,
not necessarily, I think that what I did for a long time with a lot of patients is keto plus carb cycling. And so we need to keto adapt properly and then start introducing carb cycling depending on the individual needs, so it's not the same for two people. One person can have a whole giant sweet potato 3 times a week, and another person cannot have it at all, can have a little bit of greens once a week, but they still really need that. And so, that's why I work the way I work with my clients. I prefer to work very closely with clients, less clients, and working very closely with them one-on-one and really digging deep into their needs, because that is where you get the deep results, and you figure out, and then you learn, and you also learn how to apply this to a variety of different scenarios and other people, and, offer options that can be beneficial for everybody.
So let's talk a little bit about just the most common hormone dysfunction that we're seeing right now, and just kind of give us some tips on how to go about beginning to heal. So for you, it was estrogen dominance. So can you talk a little first about just estrogen dominance and what you can do to help that?
Well, estrogen, there are two different sides to estrogen dominance. One is the estrogen that comes in, and one is the estrogen that goes out. So we should be able to detox estrogen as it is produced, so that we always Either we have endogenous estrogen, this is the one we produce ourselves, and we have exogenous estrogens or estrogen mimickers that come from substances in the environment. And they can be foods or they can be floating around like toxins. So on the side of like getting those toxins in, one thing we can do definitely is like trying to avoid all estrogen mimickers and exogenous estrogens, endotoxins, however you want to call them, endocrine disruptors. There are many names, but they're all kind of the same things. And, I don't know why, but the first thing that jumps to mind all the time is like dryer sheets.
Yes, same. I just talked about this in a group that was doing a detox, and I was like, get rid of the dryer sheets.
I can walk through a neighborhood and just like when they're doing laundry, there is like a whiff of hot hair that blows at you with that smell. And I literally have to run away because I know that what I'm breathing is like estrogen, like sprayed on you. Like,
yes,
it really is not good. That's one. And then is in plastics, all kind of plastics. Why do babies, kids like get flooded with these estrogen mimickers, and then little boys develop breasts and little girls go into puberty at 8-7 years old? It happens.
Yeah, I had a client yesterday, just because you brought this up. She told me that her daughter at 9 months old, breastfeeding, started to develop breasts, and it was because of the hormones that were in the meat she was eating, just conventional meat. And her doctor said, switch to hormone-free meat, and she did, and they went away.
Wow, that's a great case study. Wow.
I
know. I have two male patients right now with gynecomastia, and like, how do we clean it up? The good news is that you can clean it up. So number one is reducing exposure, really cleaning up your act. Look under the EPA website, Environmental Protection Agency, under endocrine disruptors. I think they have a brochure, they have pamphlets, they have pages. So there is a lot of education. Like, read about it, inform yourself, clean up your house, chug the dryer sheets, and the perfumes, the candles, perfumes that we put right on our skin, especially on the thyroid, and face creams is another really big one for us women who want to stay looking young. Guess what they put? They put estrogen in anti-aging creams. And that's because we want to preserve that youthful aspect of the skin. Estrogen does that. But there are other ways. You don't have to get extra estrogen on your face every day to make your face look young, So cleaning up from the outside, and then like rebalancing, of course, hormones. And I use herbal remedies for that, mostly tinctures, like powerful stuff. But the most important part on the internal side is cleaning your liver so that the clearance of hormone is flowing. So we want the liver pathways to be open. We want the liver to be completely supported in all the detox pathways. And sorry, I see a cat on the prowl trying to eat birds over there. Welcome to real life.
Yes.
Real life keto over here.
Yeah. Carnivore.
Yeah, carnivore in action. So we want to make sure that we support the liver detoxification pathways. And guess what? Detox pathways, in order to fully do their like phase 1, phase 2 the job done, you need protein. And mostly you need complete chains of amino acid, animal proteins, sulfur compounds. A lot of these compounds are contained in organ meats like liver. And in Chinese medicine, they say, eat the organ that you want to heal. So I find it very beneficial, of course, to recommend that you eat liver when you're trying to help your liver clean. And it's not about lemonade and cayenne powder and maple syrup, which is sugar and fructose, and, helping congest the liver even further. You know why the master cleanse works? It's because you're just not eating.
Yeah, you're starving. I tried it when I was like 19. I remember, I think I lasted one day and that was the end of it.
Well, Well, it sends you into full on like glycemic up and down, like hyper and hypoglycemia, because it's pure sugar. And if you're going to fast, at least fast with just water. But the reason why it helps is because you are doing like kind of a fast, and that is what helps your body. And compared to you eating bad stuff all day, that's not safe by its name. And like, you will be feeling better when you eliminate all that stuff, and like you're even just having lemonade and maple syrup, or cayenne pepper, whatever the master cleanse is. But this is not the way you really detox. So in order to detox phase 2 of the liver and conjugate those toxins and bind those hormones and carry them out successfully, you do need animal protein, and you also need soluble fiber. And by the way, soluble fiber as prebiotic, it doesn't necessarily need to come from plant, because collagen can be a soluble, like prebiotic soluble fiber as well, believe it or not. Like connective tissue can work as a fiber. So there you go. Estrogen dominance, liver detox, and restrict the toxic input into your body. I would say those are 2 big factors.
Yeah. And the other, of course, we have to touch in on is thyroid. I mean, every woman and their dog right now has thyroid. And if they haven't been diagnosed, they're at least showing up with the symptoms of hypothyroidism. And of course, the first interjection is always thyroid medication. And you don't usually do that, do you? You usually try and go the nutrition supplement route first. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Luckily or unluckily, I am not a prescribing doctor. Unluckily, because I cannot take people off meds. I cannot give those recommendations, but I can give them all the support so their doctor, hopefully, will take them off the thyroid meds. It's so hard. Doctors are so resistant to taking people off medication. And, it's funny, I interviewed Dr. Ken Berry, who is a doctor and is awesome, and, really becoming a friend and very like-minded person.
I just had him on my video cast and then was on his Facebook last week. So I love Ken.
Right. He's awesome. Yeah. And he gets around too. Like
he does get around. He totally does. I always say he's so popular.
He's totally popular. I think he likes it.
Yes, I think so.
But, oh shoot, I forgot what we were talking about.
Oh, that you were talking to Ken about something. Were you interviewing him?
Yes, I was. And, oh, darn it, I totally lost the train of thought. We were talking about
thyroid.
Oh, yes, and prescribing. So he gave me a great tip, and I kind of going to disclose it here. I'm going to publish his interview, I think, in a week. But the tip is that you can suggest to your doctor that, he will get paid as much for the visit if he writes down that he made the executive decision of getting you off medication. So he say that that's a level 3 visit, and that it will still get paid more. So it doesn't have to just necessarily give you medication. It can take you off the meds. So that's something great to know. And if you watch the interview when it's going to be on my blog, Dr. Ken will explain it all in detail, how, you got to talk to your doctor. Because that's what my interview with him was about how do we make the most out of the relationship with our doctors, especially for thyroid patients. For me, it's a big one because of, like you said, everybody is having thyroid issues. So I tried, one thing that doctors and endocrinologists don't really understand, at least the conventional ones, is that the thyroid is connected to every single system of the body. And it's connected to digestion, it's connected to your liver, it's connected to your gut. And this is for as the proper nutrients that support thyroid function, but also for hormone conversion. 80% of T4 gets converted to T3 in your liver. Another 20% gets converted in your gut. Only a tiny little amount gets converted in peripheral tissue. So it's really important to support the function of your liver and your gut in order for your thyroid to work. And then, of course, there is like the sex hormones and the adrenals and like this triad. And I think that was like my first interview with Leanne Vogel, that, you know, the one that you watch, and about the thyroid, that kind of got me out there as the thyroid girl, you know, but talking about, you know, like how there is this triangle. It's like a base of like ovaries and adrenals, and the thyroid is on top. So if those two are not stable and balanced, then the thyroid will start going like, you know, so if one is like, you know, the hyperadrenal, or, you know, high estrogen on the other side, then high cortisol, high estrogen, thyroid goes off balance. So we need to be very mindful of this interrelating of all the endocrine glands. As we fix the thyroid, I never really work directly with the thyroid. Like, it's the last thing I touch. Even thyroid support, funny enough, I work with iodine a lot. I work with elemental iodine in a very controlled way. This is an extremely controversial topic, has been for years. And, you know, finally, practitioners, more than doctors, are still not waking up to the importance of iodine, and they still go by the Wolff-Chaikoff study, which is complete BS. Sorry, but I get pretty worked up when I talk about that study, because like, it's bad stuff. Mm-hmm. That is bogus science to me, you know. And then they call us quacks as alternative practitioners, like really dig under the surface. Anyways, iodine is extremely important for your thyroid. And no, there is not a limit that will make your thyroid hypofunction. That is such a complete misconception. The only time that you have to be very careful in supplementation, of course, is in Graves' disease, but also in Hashimoto's, because when you are hypothyroid and you're not properly addressing all the facets, giving indiscriminate dose of iodine will aggravate the problem. But that does not mean that you don't need iodine. You just need it in the right way, and in the right, you need to selenium load before, especially a lot of people are now selenium deficient, and that affects your conversion. And that's something that your doctor won't even never talk about or never know, because they don't look at the right markers. You know, they don't know. And so there are a lot of little elements here that this is like a functional approach to thyroid health that is much more comprehensive, and it really like addresses all those little facets that are needed. And then, you know, the last thing you do is maybe you support the thyroid, like, you know, with a specific supplement, but otherwise, like, you know, of course, providing the nutrients at least. Otherwise is everything else first.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. I'm hypothyroid too. And I had to, for myself, I went on the medication just to quickly feel better and to be able to tolerate even taking supplements, which was really funny. Like it got rid of my food sensitivities. It helped my digestion just to start supplementing with some desiccated thyroid, and then start working on, okay, now what's the root cause? And like you said, nobody looks at that, or very few, except for maybe functional medicine practitioners, but a doctor certainly isn't. No one's going to say, hey, I mean, my DHEA was really low, my cortisol was low. So there's all these little things going on. I had gut stuff. So it's like, I have to, and I'm still working on it, but going through all of these little elements that are contributing to it it's so key, or else it's just, you're just band-aiding, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. And like, it's great that you experience that yourself. And I am not opposed to supplementation with medication, like, because what thyroid medication is just thyroid hormone. Yeah. So what you're really doing is supplementing thyroid hormone, but it's not like you're doing anything to fix the thyroid. You're just putting hormone downstream so the receptors can use it and you can be symptom free, which for the case of thyroid hormone, because it's so vital to so many functions, it is important. And, if you are really compromised and you're so symptomatic that you can't function, then yes, by all means, I am not opposed. I think there are better medications than others. Some are better. Like I know that, what is it? Armour actually has a number of, what's the word? Come on, additives added
Okay.
to it. So I think there is corn in Armour and something else. So it's not the cleanest supplement, not the cleanest medication. Nature Thyroid is a little better. WP Thyroid is supposed to be the cleanest one, with like one other added ingredient. So I always recommend that my patients, at least if you have to be on supplemental medication, get the cleanest one possible. Or if you need to get a compounded one, make sure that it's not just T4. Maybe you add some T3 in there. So you're not, if your problem is conversion, until you fix the conversion, you can have some relief from your symptoms, especially people with no thyroid. That's a big one,
That's a big one. Yes, absolutely. I agree. So we're almost out of time. I would love it if you could just tell everybody where they can find you, because I know that so many women are going to be like, hey, this is me. I've got this hormone dysfunction. And you work with one-on-one. You've got online programs. So can you tell us what you have available?
Yeah, so my website is thenourished.caveman.com. I'm also on Facebook, on Instagram, and on YouTube, and on Pinterest. I'm everywhere. And if you want to search for me, I'm Vivica Menegaz. And if you Google either, I work through a program, and it's called the Healing Foods Method. I try to work very closely one-on-one with very few patients. And I do get a lot of difficult cases, but that's, I also will take easy cases. Thank you.
Yes.
But I do get a lot of people come to me after they've tried everything else and nobody was really able to help them. And I'm not a genius or not, something special, but I'm very persistent and I like to dig deep into the original roots of disease. So maybe that's what differentiates me from other practitioners, is that I don't give up. And if a patient is willing to work with me on things, I do. And we dig and we go and we experiment until we find what works. So I never give up on people. And I think there is so much opportunity for healing. So the Nourished Caveman, that's it.
And you've got a couple cookbooks too.
Oh yeah, and actually I have one here. Let's see if I can not knock everything down. So this is the Keto Paleo kitchen. It's because it looks pretty.
It does look pretty. I was just thinking, I was like, oh, that's such a nice cover. It's great.
I didn't take the pictures. I'm so glad I didn't, because the photographer, she did such an amazing job.
So amazing.
The best photographer ever. So grateful, but they're pretty delicious recipes, if you ask me.
Yeah. And you have 3 cookbooks, right?
Yes. The first one, it was a community book with other bloggers, a paleo book called, I forgot, the community paleo book. Sorry, bad day for memory today. And then there is the big book of fat bombs. That's
nice. Oh, good. I like that. Yeah, great.
The Fat Bomb book was done for a publisher who wanted dairy. So there is dairy in the book. It's not my favorite, but otherwise this one is really me 100%. So this is my way of eating that I recommend for my patients. I actually just give them the book when they start the program and with meal plans and this, and this is how you're going to eat.
Oh, that's great. I love it. Well, thank you so much. I feel like we only got to do this much of what we should be talking about, because we could just go on and on. So we'll have to have you on again for sure, because you fit with my audience perfectly, because it's everything I stand for too. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure chatting with you.